Hi everybody, how are we all doing? You're the only people working at the moment in August. Congratulations. Thank you for keeping society safe and cared for. It's fantastic effort that you all go to do that, I know. This is the Institute of Health and Social Care Management. My name is Jon Wilks. I have the absolute privilege of being the Chief Executive of your institute. And this is a session on compassionate leadership today. So if you are wanting something else, then I'm afraid this is not for you, but this is Compassionate Leadership, Institute of Health and Social Care Management. Please feel free during this. This is designed as an interactive workshop. So that means from time to time I'll ask questions and so on. And feel free to unmute, respond, use chat, whatever else it might be. If some of you want to put your cameras on, you are very welcome to do so. I don't entirely want to feel like a secondary school teacher whilst the pupils claim to be working. So that would be fine. Thank you very much. We are going to start, I think, now. Shall we begin? As my mother was fond of saying, if you're not early, you can't be on time. All of you people were here on time. So I think that we'll get cracking. I'm going to share my screen in a manner best known to me. So I hope this is okay with everybody. Hope you can all now see this and you can see exactly what's occurring. There we go. Hope that's okay. Can everybody see? Everybody's part of this. We're in good nick. Okay, everybody. Right, well, look, here we go. This is Compassionate Leadership. I thought we'd start by asking any of you who might care to answer, what do you make of compassionate leadership? What do you think it is? What do you think we're referring to exactly? So would anybody like to either, I don't know, open up, put it in the chat, switch their audio on and shout out? Who'd like to explain what they think what do we make of it in terms of compassionate leadership? What do you think it is?
Trying to think about what's best for your employee that you're working with, I guess.
Thank you, Kenneth. Yeah, sort of putting yourself in their shoes, perhaps deciding what kind of experiences they're going through at any one point in time. That's good. Would anybody else like to have a bash? What does compassionate leadership mean to any of the rest of you? Just you can put it in the chat if you really like to, or you can just open up and put it here. I'll do my best. Sasha says, leading in a way where you use your empathy to drive compassionate actions. I like that, Sasha. That's lovely. Would anybody else like to have a go? As I said, this is designed as an interactive session, so please don't be shy. Vanda, hello Vanda, lovely to have you with us. I think we talk about it a lot, but it sometimes doesn't translate in reality. Belonging, empathy, softer skills, listening, respect, communication. Lovely, like all of that. Okay, well look, let's not kind of dwell on this too much. What I'd like to do, first of all, is share with you the idea that compassionate leadership is not necessarily a brand new phenomenon. I know that it's become something of a, dare I say it, management kind of buzzword at the moment. But I think it's safe to say this idea of compassion and the positive effect that it can have on people has been around for a very long time indeed. One could even go back, I suppose, to the good tale of the Good Samaritan, and this is Jacopo Bassano's fabulous painting of the Good Samaritan, painted in 1562, that hangs in the National Gallery in London. If any of you do get the opportunity to go and have a look at it, please do so. And the reason I suggest that, if you're interested in what we mean by compassion, is get up as close as you can to the canvas and have a look at the brushwork. Because the brushwork, I swear, Jacopo Bassano has painted this not just to create an image of the story of the Good Samaritan, but has painted it, I think, in a compassionate manner. If you look at the brush strokes, the delicacy, the attention to detail, the thoughtfulness with which he's laid on the different paint and the brush strokes he's used, the indentations in the skin that are profound when you look at it up close, you would reach the conclusion that this actually really is a compassionate painting. But 1562, for heaven's sakes. You want something a little bit more modern? Go on then. How about this? This is painted by somebody called Muragaya. They're a Japanese artist. It's called Compassion. It's developed with something called the Compass Collective. More about that in a moment or two. And it was exhibited at the South Bank Centre in 2023, along with several other examples of Muragaya's Japanese modern paintings. Just in case, has anybody heard of the Compass Collective? Please tell me I'm not in an echo chamber here. Has anybody heard of a Compass Collective? No?
No.
Would anybody like to speculate what it might be? Okay, let me help you here. It's made up of refugee children. Okay, so it's the idea that they bring their own cultural experiences from their country of origin to positively impact the communities into which they're obliged to move as a result of the experiences that they've had. It's a very worthwhile organisation. If any of you are interested in learning some more about it, I would encourage you to do so. But Muragaya partnered with the Compass Collective to create this. So it's lots of the children have been involved in deciding on the imagery and on the behaviours that are exhibited and so on. And what you can see here, we've got a lotus flower and we've got a chrysanthemum flower, both very positive icons of Japanese imagery in art and so on. And I really rather like the whole idea of this. What do you think? You like that? But this is 2023. What about this next one? Avalokiteshvara, Buddhist goddess of compassion. This is from the 14th century, so created sometime in the 1300s in Tibet. It now resides in the Philadelphia Gallery of Fine Art. But isn't that just fantastic? Look at that. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Avalokiteshvara, Buddhist goddess of compassion, 14th century. So this stuff, you know, this idea of compassionate activity being a new phenomenon, I believe people have understood the power, the positive power of compassion absolutely for centuries. And indeed, maybe we should have learnt some examples of this in terms of modern phenomena that might have presented themselves. So you could look at the recent news about the post office. Actually, not that recent. It's probably been going on for 24 years or more. I don't need to go into the background of it, but just ask yourself if the leadership of the post office had been more compassionate and thoughtful and tried to put themselves in the shoes of the sub-postmasters who they prosecuted, would we have ever got to the horrific situation that befell us? Or look at the situation with the Brewdog Brewery. This is a recent story up in Scotland, originally conceived by the founder as a really ethical, properly valued organisation. He set it up as a microbrewery originally designed this to be an organisation that supported the real living wage and that kind of stuff. He sold a chunk of it to private equity. Private equity moves in. All of a sudden, commitment to the living wage has been done away with. Environmental good works have been done away with. Allegations of bullying left, right and centre amongst the leadership teams and so on. A company, dare I say, I mean, it'll be okay, it'll survive. But the foundation principles that propelled it to greatness, horribly compromised by a lack of compassion in the most recent past. Does this make sense to everybody? Yeah? Because what I'd like you to do now is reflect upon, okay, so how does this translate now if we're not compassionate in the NHS and social care? And here's some recent stats that I've pulled together for you from the NHS Staff Council, their Health, Safety and Wellbeing Group, and NHS employers. Look at these stats. So this is from 2022 detail, but look at this. 18.7% of people who work in the NHS now report experience of bullying or harassment in the last year from colleagues. 98% of you have experienced incivility in the workplace. 98% of you. That's virtually all of you. Staff who see incivility have a 20 30% decrease in their performance and a 50% decrease in wanting to help other people. So lack of compassion is a toxin that runs through organization and has profound negative effects on the experience of the customer, then of the people who then choose to access those services. Look at that. 11.1% of staff experienced bullying or harassment in the last year from their manager. And this is frightful stuff. I don't know the extent to which any of you particularly have suffered from this type of stuff. It would be idiotic of me to sit here today and think, well, it kind of happened to these fine people because UHL and Northamptonshire Healthcare and Kettering and so on, they're pillars of justice and so on. You know, we know, we're all long in the tooth enough to know you'll get stuff like this going on, but I would hope that we understand the damaging effects that it can have now. Look at this stuff here. Sickness presenteeism due to bullying costs £604 million a year to the NHS, and toxic behaviour costs the NHS more than £2 billion a year because we lose people, we struggle to recruit, people feel demoralised, de-incentivised, uninspired to go about doing their work. It's just a rot from within that if we're serious, we need to do something about. How about this? This is the way that all of those stats then translate basically. So this is your 2022-23 staff survey results. This isn't, I must stress, for the area comprising University of Hospitals of Leicester, Northampton and Kettering. This is the wider NHS England. But we have now 130,000 vacancies. I'm not going to go through all of those stats. You're probably familiar with them anywhere. The worst element for me is that only 62.9% of you and your colleagues across NHS England recommend the NHS as a place to be cared for. In my view, that is a direct response to the experiences that you and others of your ilk have working within the NHS from the perspective of the toxic damage that lack of compassion has for you all. I hope you understand this. In other words, compassionate leadership, empathy, understanding, attending, and so on, isn't something that would be nice to have. If we're serious about high performance leadership and getting the very best from the people with whom we work and making sure that our patients and service receivers have a really first class experience, we should be crawling naked over broken glass in search of any kind of grain of compassionate leadership advice that might help us to get ourselves into a better position. Does this make sense to all? I know I'm kind of preaching to the converted a little bit here. I do understand that. But I do think it's worth equally just flashing up some of the activity that's been going on and some of the results of, I perceive, a lack of compassion in terms of leadership that we've all witnessed, I suspect, over the years. Okay? What I'd like us to do now is move to a little exercise. So this is where you get to do a bit of work. I get to be quiet for a little while. I want you, if it's, have you all got a piece of paper, something like that in front of you, blank piece of paper? What I want you to do is I want you to draw a line down the middle of it, like that. Get the idea? This isn't the most difficult thing any of you have done. And then on the left-hand side, I want you to write best. And on the right-hand side, I want you to write worst. So your piece of paper is going to look like that. You all get it? So what I now want you to do, now you've done that, I want you to think of the worst boss that you've ever had. Okay? You might be lucky. There might be only a little bit worse than your current brilliant boss. But whatever it is, okay? So think of the worst boss that you've ever had. And then what I want you to do is write down in that worst column the behaviors that that person did with you that now make you, on Wednesday the 14th of August, in the middle of most people's summer holidays, to be recalling in visceral detail those behaviours and, I suspect, the damage that they did to you. So that's where I want to start. Worst boss only, please. Think of the behaviours that they did and be as forensic in detail as you possibly can be. The worst boss that you've ever had. Bring it up. Is that okay? Off you go. Thank you very much. And when you've finished, can you kind of do a thumbs up or something like that, or switch your camera on and give me the eyes? I don't really mind what you do. If I don't know, then I can't be expected really to keep time with this. Thank you. Is that Kalwant or Kyra? Forgive me for asking. I want to make sure I've got this right. It's Kalwant, I think.
Kalwant, Callie, yeah.
Callie, thank you very much, Callie. You're the first to finish. You can fold your arms and look smug now. That's fine. How are the rest of you getting on? There we go. Liz has done it. Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you, Joanne. Oh, several of you getting this finished now. That's good. Thank you very much, Lorraine. Jessica's finished. Well done, Harry. Thank you. All right, so what I'd like some of you that have finished already, and perhaps just to help those who are still writing some stuff down, I'd like a couple of you to be prepared to speak up. Just open your audio and tell me some of the behaviours that you'd written down, please. So perhaps raise your hand to indicate that you are prepared to do that, and then I'll come straight to you. So Liz, would you like to go first, please? Just tell us some of the behaviours.
Being excluded, shouted at, ridiculed in front of other members of staff.
So excluded, shouted at, so as a loss of temper and that kind of stuff, yeah?
Yeah.
And what was the final one, sorry?
Just being ridiculed in front of colleagues.
Public ridicule. Okay, that doesn't sound at all pleasant. And if you need to have a little bit of therapy with me quietly afterwards, I'm more than willing to do that. Okay, it's a horrible start, so thank you. Joanne, would you like to go next, please?
She whispered behind your back. She wouldn't authorise annual leave, even though there was nobody else off at the time. And she just had no empathy.
So can I call the second one unreasonable denial? Would that be
Yeah.
Is that okay? And
Yeah.
lack of empathy was your last one, yeah? Or even interest in empathy.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right. Well, it's not lovely, you know what I mean. Jessica, would you like to go next? Thank you.
So I've put unsupportive, manipulative.
Oh dear.
Showed favoritism. I've also put here smiling assassin. So one thing to your face and then another thing behind your back, all very nicey. And then things would get back to you that wasn't quite what had actually happened from there.
And forgive me, after manipulative, you'd said something else, but I didn't get it noted down.
Favoritism. They kind of
Favoritism.
They weren't not very fair, I suppose.
Yeah, unequal, I'll call it as well. Okay, thank you. Lovely. Would anybody else like to speak up? Got a few things down here. It's far more fun if a few of the rest of you speak up as well. We'll have Kenneth first, and then we'll have Sangeeta. Thank you.
I put cold, unsupportive, and uncompassionate.
And just forgive me for trying to be precise here. When you're saying they're not compassionate, do you mean that they demonstrated no thought for you? Is that what we're driving at?
Yeah, and I guess like this was when I was first starting out, so like they weren't able to kind of come alongside me to help me to be better. Rather they just were cold and just saying, why can't you do this? So
got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've put cold and distant And I've got unreasonable already elsewhere, but okay, I've got that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ken. And Sangeeta,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I'd say lying,
Oh,
gaslighting,
goodness.
gaslighting, threatening, and acting like a dictator, not listening to anything or any evidence or anything that you say, just discounting.
Not listening, I've got as well. Okay, and threatening. Goodness me, that doesn't sound like a good experience at all. Horrible. Harry, go ahead, please.
Hello. I was just going to say they would micromanage quite a lot. And then when you do bad work, they will criticize you a lot. But then when you do good work, they would sort of shoot it down straight away and play it down a lot. So it's almost like you can't win in their books.
Yeah. Writing make impossible to win. You know what I mean? Good. I'm sorry you've had that experience as well, Harry. Well, look, I've got quite a lot of stuff written down there. I hope you can all see that. That's everybody's contribution. I've got excluded, shouted at, public ridicule, whispered behind back, unreasonable denial, lack of empathy or interest, unsupportive, manipulative, smiling assassin, favoritism, unequal, cold and distant, lying, gaslighting, threatening, not listening, micromanaging, making it impossible to win. Ugh. What a horrible, toxic environment too many of you have been obliged to go through. But let's spin this round. Go on to the other side of the piece of paper now, and under best, what are you going to write? Off you go. Best leader you've ever had, best boss you've ever had. What do they do? What are the behaviours that make you now, on Wednesday, the 14th of August, be recalling this stuff in magnificent detail during a workshop on compassionate leadership? Off you go.
I'll have a go, John. It's Vanda.
Oh gosh, that quickly. If you don't mind, Van, hang on a minute or two, because
Okay.
there'll be other people going through their lists and so on. I don't want to divert them just yet, but then I will come to you first up,
Okay,
and
great
then to
stuff.
Liz, if that's all right. Thank you. And lovely to see you, by the way, Vanda. Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready, everybody, just to help me to manage this as best I can. Lovely. It's going well. Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Sean. Fiona's ready. Marvellous. The more detail we can go into here, the better. You'll understand why in a minute or two. Thank you, Joanne. All right, come on then, Vanda. I promised you first digs. What have you got?
Okay, thank you. The obvious ones: kind, caring, a good listener, good communicator, interested in what you do, engaged, polite, fair and consistent, say sorry when they've made a mistake, constructive, thoughtful, and no hidden agendas.
Good gracious me. That was, considering you were ready to tell us all that in 30 seconds, you must write like lightning. Good heavens above. Thank you very much. That's a great start, Vanda. Thank you. I've managed to get some of it down. So if I've not managed to get all of it, then forgive me. We'll find out in a minute or two. Who was next? Liz, would you like to go next? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a few of the same: supportive, compassionate, great mentor, doors always open policy, forever praising the work that you've done, good listener, no hidden agendas.
If you don't mind, I have an inbuilt aversion to the idea of anybody that says my door is always open, because for most people it means that it may well be, but everybody's so terrified of them they're not prepared to walk across the threshold. So can we call it accessible instead? Would that be all right, Liz?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Kenneth, would you like to go next? You may have, forgive me if you didn't want to go next, but go for it. Why not?
That's fine. Similar ones: kind, empathetic, interested in me as a person, not just as a worker, supportive in helping me to progress. Use of a lot of affirmation and praising language.
Good. And I've no doubt you deserve it all as well, Kenneth, as well. Praising and affirmation. Lovely. Would anybody else like to offer some ideas from their own experience? Let's go. Sian, thank you very much indeed. And then we'll come to Jessica.
Makes adjustments for you when you need them.
Good. Yeah.
When you approach, and also takes things that are important to you seriously. It could be a small thing to them, like authorising your holiday, but it's a massive anxiety to you. So if they take that seriously and deal with it in a timely fashion.
I like that. That's grand, isn't it? Isn't that lovely? Good. Okay. Anything else, Sian? Lovely. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I've got one more thing. Offers solutions as well. If you go to them with a problem, then they'll discuss it with you and come up with some kind of solution, as well as, not just batting it back to you.
So I've got offer solution and open to discussion. Is that okay?
Yes.
Does that fulfill what the sort of stuff you'd written down? Jessica, were you next? I think you were.
Yeah, I think so. I thought if I've done the negatives, I should probably end it on a bit of a positive.
Please.
So a lot of what other people have said, and actually it sort of resonates with what Sian was saying as well, about sort of being genuinely invested and interested in each member of staff. So having like an awareness of what's happening in those people's lives a little bit, and trying to be accommodating and understanding of that. So I suppose a bit of an emotional intelligence there as well.
Lovely.
That's probably one of the biggest things that's not been covered, but obviously Sian's just said similar. So and then the rest everyone else has said. Yeah.
Marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. Well, look, everyone, that's what I've now got. I've got a piece of paper. I hope you can all see that. Full of stuff there. Under best, I've got kind and caring, listener, communicator, says sorry, interested, supportive, great mentor, accessible, empathetic, interested in me as a person, praising and affirmation, makes adjustments, takes important stuff from you seriously, offers solutions and open to discussion, genuinely interested and interesting, and high emotional intelligence. Okay, so that's quite a lot of stuff. And we've just spent, looking at my clock here, we've just spent 11 minutes doing that. Why would we spend in an exercise in compassionate leadership, a workshop on compassionate leadership, why would we spend 11 minutes for me to fill in a piece of paper on best boss, worst boss? This is one of those interactive moments again, by the way, in case any of you are interested. What have we just created?
A list of things that we want to emulate and avoid potentially.
I like that, Kenneth. You might even summarize that down by saying we've created a template of compassionate and non-compassionate leadership. And the other thing is, this isn't something that I have made up. This is something that is grounded in the reality of your workplace experiences, all of you who've contributed. And I suppose those people who didn't speak up, I bet you've got similar stuff written down in front of you. So there it is, on the side of best. That's how we want to behave, if possible. And this stuff, the right-hand side of the page, is the stuff to avoid. So what? I mean, that's pretty simplistic, but so what? Here's the so. We are all human beings. We are all therefore imperfect. And we all have vulnerabilities. And sometimes stuff happens. And we're not feeling at our best. Or we've had a lousy start to the day. Or we've had an argument with one of our loved ones. Or there's been some problem when we've dropped off the kids at school. Or we've walked in and somebody's done something really crass and awkward. And guess what? Any of us on this call today, I can tell you now, while you aspire to be on the best side of the piece of paper all of the time, I bet most of us, with our hand on our heart, would say every now and then we've slipped over here, and we've been perfectly guilty of doing stuff that comes from that worst side of the piece of paper. Now, that's a fact. None of us is perfect. We can't be expected to be perfect in a leadership role all of the time. So what I would encourage you to think about, therefore, is now you know the toxic outcomes that this worse boss behavior creates from your own worked experience. Understand that the sooner we do self-reflective activity in the workplace, and we're able to realize that we've erred over onto that side of the piece of paper, then the better. And if we realize that we've had a difficult hour or a difficult couple of hours or a difficult day, well, go and have a walk around the car park, go and have a cup of tea with somebody who you know and trust, and figure out what you need to do as quickly as possible to get yourself over back onto the right side of the piece of paper. Does this make sense? And one of the things you might want to do, for example, is take some inspiration from stuff that's on that side, that best side. So things like Vanda saying, be prepared to say sorry. So saying sorry, apologizing for behavior that you know isn't great, isn't a weakness. It's a real strength. People will tell you, I promise you, that they value your vulnerabilities just as much as your strengths if you're prepared to acknowledge them. It's the people who kind of refuse to apologize for anything and claim to be perfect who typically have the lowest emotional intelligence scores and are likely to cause the most toxic, compassionate leadership environment. It's this understanding that we're all imperfect, but that therefore we crave an objective of being on the best side of the piece of paper, and we're prepared to be self-reflective enough to know when we've gone wrong and we're going to get ourselves back onto the right side. That is really the real strength of anybody who's serious about compassionate leadership. By the way, you might be wondering to yourself, who is that person on the slide that you can see right now that probably my head is just under at present? Would anybody like to speculate who that is? You see, soon I'm coming to you in Leicester to do some in-person workshops on high performance leadership. Who do you think it is, Mark? Oh, forgive me. I was hearing something I perhaps shouldn't have been hearing. Anybody, any idea who she is? No. Her initials are BAM. Beverly Alamo Metcalf. That's Beverly Alamo Metcalf, visiting professor of leadership studies at numerous leading academic institutions and professional institutions across the UK. I think she's retired now, to be fair to her, but she came up with this great treatise of academic work that really underpins all of the stuff around follower needs. So the really good leaders understand what their followers need of them in order for those followers to come to work on a daily basis and want to give of their very best. Beverly was really in the rock solid foundation principles of all the academic work that underpins a lot of that activity. That's why I thought it was worth putting up a little picture of her here. Okay, so look what we've got already. In half an hour we've got a template of what compassionate and non-compassionate leadership looks, feels and sounds like from your own worked experience. Let me take you now through one or two things to do with the theory behind compassionate leadership, and I'm going to use, unashamedly, for the most part of this, I'm going to use the brilliant work of Professor Michael West, who's a visiting professor at the King's Fund in London. He works with numerous NHS organisations across the UK, and he wrote this book, Compassionate Leadership, Sustaining Wisdom, Humanity and Presence in Health and Social Care. in collaboration with Health Improvement and Education Wales, which is our country hub for the Principality. And I'm going to take you through Michael's 4 key elements for delivering compassionate leadership in your workplace. So would anybody like to speculate? Oh, there we are. I've pressed the button far too early. There's Michael's first element. Would anybody like to help us understand what he or we might mean by attending? What does this refer to particularly? Feel free to speak up, or if you want to pop it in the chat, you're very welcome to. I'm sorry, I've not been monitoring the chat. I might have done as well as I could have done, but there we are. I've got it up now. But what do we mean by attending? Would anybody like to speculate? Being present. That's nice, Liz. Okay. Anything else specifically here? Why is this so important? Let's try a different tack here. Why would this be so important as one of the 4 mainstays of compassionate leadership? So Kenneth says being intentional. I like that. Active listening to a certain extent, Carl. Yeah. Anybody else? Why is this so important? Shall I give you a little clue?
To help the person feel listened to or heard.
Well, actually, you can't be listened to or heard if your boss, for want of a better word, isn't prepared to attend with you. In other words, this is a deliberate effort that needs to be made by compassionate leaderships to be there for their people, to be approachable, to be accessible, to make time for people to express to them their successes, challenges, concerns, anxieties, whatever else it might be. We make sure that we're there in the present so that people feel they're able to then share their experiences with us. And the only piece of advice I would give you here from my own personal experience is you can't do this by accident. It only works if you make it a deliberate part of your daily diary, where you make time to engage with and listen to members of the team that you are privileged to be responsible for. You diarize time with them so that actually it's not an accident, or isn't it lucky that actually you are seen to be making a deliberate effort to make time for yourself with them. Is that all clear? It'd just be really interesting. I mean, we don't have the privilege here in the virtual world, but if I was with you in person, I'd say hands up those of you who diarize daily time with your people, so that they would, if I asked them, do you feel attended to, would they say yes? Because I promise you, in my experience, if you don't diarize it, it'll sometimes happen, it sometimes won't happen, and you lose that that planned element to this. Okay, but that's attending. Michael West would say that is the first pillar of compassionate leadership. The second pillar, anybody want to guess? Some of you, I bet some of you have read the book anyway, so got listening. Here you go. This is the next one. It's understanding is the second one. So yes, you have made yourself available, you've attended. Now your job is, from what they tell you, to demonstrate that you have understood. And you might be wondering, what on earth are these images of that I'm sharing with you on this slide in respect of this understanding element? Well, allow me to explain, if I may. So you can see Loganair. Anybody know what Loganair is? So it's Scotland's national airline. National Airline of Scotland is Loganair. By the way, any of you interested? The in-flight meal on every Loganair local flight is a Tunnock's caramel. I kid you not. They bring them round in a basket. You can operate like a hand grab. You can grab 3 or 4 if you like. They don't mind. It's Scotland's national export. As far as they're concerned on Loganair, that's your in-flight meal. Isn't that cool?
Best biscuits ever.
That is biscuit heaven. It is absolutely biscuit heaven, Liz. I was privileged to fly up with Loganair last year from Cardiff, where I live, up to Edinburgh to go and see the fabulous NHS Education Scotland, who look after education and learning for everybody in Scottish health and social care. And I got onto my little Loganair plane. It was even smaller, by the way, than that one, at Cardiff Airport for the short flight up there. I sat down, and then after me came and sat down a whole group of people who were wearing red polo shirts, and on their left breasts embroidered was the Welsh fleur-de-lis. So this was a Welsh national representative team, and underneath the fleur-de-lis it said Wales National Deaf Bowling Team. So they were on their way up to Scotland to have a match against their counterparts in the Scotland deaf community in Edinburgh over the coming weekend. Get the idea? And guess what happened in respect of understanding? Anybody like to speculate? So we've just sat down, everybody's strapped in, we're starting the taxiway back, and the cabin stewardess come on and do the pre-flight safety announcement. They do the whole thing, and then one of the in-flight cabin stewards comes and kneels next to the Wales Deaf Bowling Team people and signs the whole of the cabin safety announcement to them. Isn't that cool? I think that's massively cool. I've never seen it before on any other airline, and Loganair have made it a part of their inclusivity proposition that they freely learn. Every member of cabin staff learns sign language so they're able to do the cabin in-flight safety announcement before the flight takes off. Isn't that cool? What a lovely thing to do. And you saw how much it meant to the Wales bowlers. I don't think they'd ever experienced it before. It's a new thing that Loganair have decided to do. But in terms of, I did have a bit of a chat with the Loganair staff afterwards, and I said, that was the most delightful thing that you did. And they said, well, we've been listening to customer feedback. We know that we have deaf customers, periodically riding with us. So we just took a decision amongst us that we would make a commitment to learn sign language so that we could sign the cabin safety announcement to them. Isn't that lovely? But that's the second element, demonstrating an understanding that you have listened and you've heard. Get the idea? What do you think the third key pillar of compassionate leadership, according to Michael West, might be? So you've attended, you've understood, you now need to demonstrate something else. Several of you mentioned it under Best Boss. It's the E word. Empathize. So this is the next one. Here you go. You empathize. You demonstrate through your words and behaviors and language that you've not only attended, you've not only understood, but actually you feel their emotion. You actually get it. You demonstrate that you actually have an understanding of that, and actually you now feel that you're in a position where you feel what they feel. And I got this, forgive me for pinching it, I got this lovely photo from your healthcare support worker conference in November last year. I just thought that was a lovely thing. I know there's a huge commitment upon this at University Hospitals of Leicester, so I thought I'd pinch that photo with pride, because to me that's again a demonstration of empathy on a proper level. Is that okay with everybody? So that's your third pillar, that you empathize and you explicitly demonstrate that empathy. Okay, what do you think the fourth and final key foundation pillar of compassionate leadership according to Michael might be? Vanda says belonging, kind of. Good try, Vanda. Not quite what I was looking for. Action. You are closer, Sophie. You are closer. So it's an H word to do with action. So you've attended, you've understood, you've empathized. Now you're going to help. Good work, Calwan. Thank you very much. We're now going to help. So you might be a bit perplexed. What the heck is going on here? Well, that photograph was taken on March the 8th earlier this year. That's me in the bed. That's my eldest son lurking over me. They are vital signs monitors going bleep around me and tubes and all the rest of it, because I'd had a seizure about 2 hours prior to that. The one and only seizure I've ever had. It was the full Monty. And yeah, I was in a hell of a mess while that all took place. I was taken to hospital where I was looked after wonderfully at Bridgend Princess of Wales Hospital. But I want you to home in on the picture here. Some of you will know this, some of you don't, but I sing in a male voice choir, the best male voice choir in Wales. I would suggest to you it's Cowbridge Male Voice Choir. And just before I had my seizure, I was doing some singing practice, a little rehearsal from the guy here, who you can see wearing spectacles. His name's Paul, and he was with me when I had my seizure. Very frightening experience. To those of you who've witnessed a seizure, I bet several of you have. It's a very frightening experience. It's not particularly frightening for the person who's having the seizure because you don't know anything about it. But for people watching it, it's horrible. And he was with my wife while I had it. And here's the crunch. I mean, he was brilliant. Whilst it was all going on and all hell was breaking, he was fantastic. And we now have a kind of an unbreakable bond, I think, between the two of us. But he said to me, we've had a bit of decompression stuff subsequently. He's had a little bit of counselling and so on. And he said to me, only 3 or 4 weeks ago now, he said, John, I just want to talk to you about what happened in March when I was with you. And I was able to help you. And he said to me, he said, the extraordinary thing now is I feel privileged to have been there. Isn't that a fantastic expression of emotion? I feel privileged to have been there. Because you would feel this, you know, you would empathise with Paul's view, I suspect. Working in health and social care gives you the privilege of being able to help people when they're in danger, in peril, feeling vulnerable, frightened, anxious, whatever else it might be. And he said it's the only time in his life where he's really felt able to see somebody who's in dire straits and is able to do something to make them you know, safe and all the rest of it. Does this make sense to some of the rest of you? I bet it does. I bet you would understand Paul's emotions completely. But I thought I don't mind sharing this with you. You know, it's something that happened. It's a reality of my life. We understand now, by the way, if any of you wondering why it happened, and I'm having treatment for that. But I feel good. I feel fine. I'm on my call and I will enjoy the rest of my life. Thank you very much. But helping, so having attended, understood, empathized, the final bit is do something so that person feels that all of their emotional needs are now being met, or you've somehow contributed to them leaving the session with you feeling rather better than they did at the beginning of it. Does this make sense? That's compassion. That's in essence what we've been talking about for the last hour. And if I could impress upon you anything, it's to do that best boss, worst boss exercise again for yourself, maybe. Figure out what's on that left-hand side of the page that you do really well day in, day out, and do even a little bit more of it. And whenever you feel yourself slipping over onto that right-hand side of the page, do whatever you need to do to get back onto the left-hand side of the page, whilst bearing in mind you need to make time for yourself to attend with your people. You've got to shut up and listen, by which you can therefore understand what they've got going on. You demonstrate some empathy for their situation, and then you offer whatever reasonable help you can. If we can only get everybody who works in the NHS and social care in a position of leadership responsibility to understand those 4 pillars, I think we will transform the experience for the millions of people who work in our wonderful profession. Does this make sense? That's what it's all about. That's compassionate leadership. I don't think it's difficult. It's something we intuitively know the value of. It's just persuading ourselves that it's important, because we might be thinking to ourselves, actually, the really important stuff isn't all this soft West Coast kind of thing. The really important stuff is delivering on KPIs. It's ensuring we're ready for our next CQC inspection. It's making certain that we're addressing our budget overspend or whatever. I would suggest politely to you that all those other things are outcomes. We can work on those. They will deliver whatever they will deliver if we, as a group of people responsible for leadership, do so in a compassionate, thoughtful and empathetic manner. I'm not going to get any more preachy about it than that. I suspect you all agree with what I've said, and I hope that a lot of what I've said resonates with you, and you now make an even more concerted effort to go off and do something positive with the information that we've shared today. Does that make sense? I've got to share this with you one more time. They're the 4 key elements. So attend, understand, empathize, help. They're your 4 key elements. I can't go off without readdressing that rather wonderful photograph. And if any of you would like to contact me and share any thoughts you've got about this, or you'd like to discuss specific elements of your own situation and you'd like some independent help with it, I'd be only too delighted to work with you, if that's okay. There we go. Sangeeta, do you have a question, I wonder?
Yes, I do. A very good presentation, and certainly, you know, I take on board what you're saying. But there were a lot of people here who was describing their worst bosses, including myself. And I think the reason we're in the mess we are in the NHS with compassionate leadership is the worst bosses, I bet they're not on these courses, they don't go on these courses, and they're not held accountable. I think it's very well building people up to be compassionate leader. If you're not addressing the people who are not showing this behavior, that is the biggest problem in the NHS that needs tackling, is to hold people accountable that exhibit the behavior that most of us talked about as the worst boss. That's what I wanted to say.
I don't disagree at all, Sangeeta, and I suspect plenty of people on the call will not disagree with anything you've said either. If I may, one person at a time, one building block at a time, one piece of improvement at a time. You are valuable. The way you conduct yourself will be seen by others, and that positive approach will spread. People will see that when you lead the way I know you do lead, people will see the positive effects that will have. You will win disciples to your corner. You know, you will win other converts who decide that that's the way they want to go. And we have to stay positive about it, despite everything else that goes on. I really believe that if we all decide we're going to do it this way, sooner or later the tide will turn against the people who decide to do it the other way. And we have to be positive about this. Sooner or later we will win. Control your own controllable. Let the rest of the organization see the positive effect that has, and you feel good about that, because you are made of the right stuff. It's your example that we want others to follow. So thank you. Would anybody else like to comment very quickly? All right, have you enjoyed that? Has that been useful? I mean, here we are in the middle of August. You know, half the population is away on holiday. It strikes me half the people I tend to interact with are away on holiday. So first of all, thank you for doing all that you do during the summer break when other people are putting their toes in soft sand and so on, and you're continuing to deliver the exemplary standards of health and social care across Leicestershire, Northamptonshire and Kettering that I know you do. So my thanks to all of you, and I do hope that was worthwhile for you to come along and enjoy today. So we'll leave it there for today. I look forward to seeing you in person very soon when I'm coming over to Leicester, I think, to deliver some sessions. And if you've enjoyed it, spread the word. Tell them how good the Institute is and how much you've enjoyed this, and put into practice some of the brilliant, compassionate leadership advice and experiences you've heard about today. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll leave you to it. Bye-bye.